It was 100% an irrational fear, but my fear of losing the completion of my T206 Polar Bear backrun set has come to an end as my recent 21 card SGC order returned back to Seattle in what I would say record time from the National. We'll break down the timeline here in a second. When you look at all 21 cards, 15 of them came from my set. I added in 6 more cards to the order. I will tell you, overall, I was very, very pleased with the result. My Cobb came back better than I expected. Only one card came in lower when you look at that card versus the other ones of the order. I need to dig into that card and see what I missed on that particular card. But overall, a very, very successful SGC order. Now, from a timeline perspective, I was absolutely blown away by the level of service from SGC. I know they talk about 5 to 10 business days, but I took these cards and dropped them off on Thursday at the National. I 100% expected them to keep these cards with them until maybe Monday or Tuesday after the National when they returned back to Florida. But no, these cards were graded and returned to me by Saturday. So within 10 days, not even business days, just 10 full days, these cards were accepted, sent to Florida, graded, encapsulated, and then brought back to me. Just an amazing deal for $15 a card for the ones under $1,500. I already have another order ready to go, and I can't wait to get more back, but that was just, in my opinion, from a customer service expectation perspective, 100%, they nailed it out of the park. But now let's dig into the 6 cards that are not part of my set first. Now, of the 6 non-set cards, I will call this one the coolest, and this one is backwards. I tried really hard when I submitted this card to see if they would grade it backwards, and the reason why I wanted to grade it backwards is I picked this up from Just Collect about a year or so ago, but on the back of the card it has a 1909-1910 period stamp. But the most important detail is it actually has a postmark and it actually also has an address. So from what I can tell, this card was actually mailed and certified and processed through the United States Postal Service 114 years ago. And so to me, this card, this is an extra one for my set. The back is what's most important, and that is why I wanted to grade it backwards, but they wouldn't do it. I understand why, but this is just a really neat one for my overall personal collection. Next up is the most collectible card in the entire T206 set. And if you're wondering and you're thinking, didn't Chris sell this a few months ago? I did, but the buyer did not pay for this John Titus, so it's been sitting on my desk ever since, and I figured why not just go ahead and throw it in with the order, get it encapsulated. I know it's going to come back in A grade because someone wrote out the name on the front, but this is just a cool one to have. I will be selling it here in the near future. Next up, we have Newt Randall. I recently purchased an SGC 4 without maybe realizing how nice this raw copy was into my set, but I'm actually now very thankful that I purchased that 4 because this one came back a 2.5, not meeting the criteria of my SGC 3 set. Then we have this Rube Geyer. I recently purchased this raw with another card that I really like to grade on from a seller on eBay, but this is very basic, 1.5, nothing too extraordinary with this card. But the next 2 are what we consider some lower population count T206 cards. First up, we have Red Klein now in his New York variation. When you look at the SGC population difference, there are just 19 of these graded versus 100 of his Boston variation. So very happy this came back a 1, obviously in really rough condition overall, but scarce compared to the Boston variation. And then the one that I was happiest about when it comes to non-set cards is Bob Rhodes Right Arm Extended. This is one of the first non-Hall of Famers that I'd be picking up if I was going to redo the Polar Bear set in 2024 and beyond. But this one I again bought raw with the Rube Geyer, and I was just very happy to have this come back and SGC 2. And the reason why I'm so happy that this Bob Rhodes came back as an SGC 2 is when you go back to my national recap video, the one thing that I could not find in prevalence compared to years ago at the National was mid-grade Polar Bears, grade 2, grade 3. It felt like there was either a bunch of low grade 1s or high grade Hall of Famers. And these are the cards that I am right now being very aggressive on when it comes to eBay, is buying these nice looking raw copies, having them graded, and then stash them away for a little bit, because it still feels that this mid-grade off-back material is drying up, and I want to be on the right end of this formula when we look down the road in 2026 and 2027. Now comes the fun part, the cards that are actually for my T206 Polar Bear set. And I will tell you, overall, of these 16 cards, a lot of winners, and I'm very, very happy, of course, with the results. But first and foremost, let's talk about the card that's the rarest Polar Bear in the entire set. This is Simon Nichols. No surprise here, A grade. I'm just grading it to keep it encapsulated and secure for the future. This is absolutely a card I want to upgrade if I can ever find a copy higher than 3. There are just 12 Simon Nichols right now on the SGC grading list. And of those 12 graded SGC copies, only 3 of them are over a 2. There are 2 3s and 1 3.5. So this may be a mini-year hunt to secure that Simon Nichols. Next up, we have the Tris Speaker. Again here, no real surprise with this grade. The bottom left corner, you can almost actually bend the card back, but very, very happy to have it at a 1 versus the potential to coming back an A grade. Next up, we have a tattoo sleeve card. We have the Hal Chase holding trophy. This one on the front looks largely pretty good, but you obviously can tell the back has that paper loss from probably being in a scrapbook or some sort of book in the previous generation of the card ownership, but this is a 1.5 and now obviously hitting that upgraded needed list in the near future. And now the card that maybe surprised me the most is this Steamer Flanagan SGC2. When you look at this card compared to the other ones that graded 3 and above that we'll cover here in a second, I need to really take a look at this card, but this one surprised me. And then also joining the Steamer Flanagan in the 2 category, we have Orval Overall. When you take a look at the front here, again, still pretty good. I think the back is really where it hurt. Those bottom corners look a little ruffled in my opinion. So again, needing to upgrade that one now that it is a 2. And then the last 2 of the order, which means all of these outside of 1 are 3 or above, which makes me very, very happy, is Wildfire Schulte. Another rarer Polar Bear, a little bit less of a quality of a card when you take a look at it versus the others, but very happy to have this in a 2. And now the big boy of the order is, of course, my most expensive raw card purchase ever. This is the Cobb Red Portrait. Super, super, super happy to have this come back at a 1.5. I never dreamed it would be a 2 or a 2.5 or even a 3. But when I think back to how I purchased this raw for right at $2,000, to have this now come back at 1.5, I am just absolutely happy. When you take a look at this Cobb, just a phenomenal front. The color, the image, the registration. Yes, the top left corner is missing. I was afraid that may earn this card a 1, but maybe the front of the card is what earned that the 0.5 little bump. So very, very happy. I feel I earned enough value in that 0.5 bump to cover the entire grading order and more. So just very, very happy with this Cobb 1.5. And just being real here for a second, if you're new to pre-war, don't for a second even think about dropping $2,000 on a raw T206 card. That purchase was 5 years into the making of me studying, learning, dissecting the set. This was not a gamble purchase, but if you're new to T206 and you're about to drop down $2,000, you have to make sure it is graded and authenticated. Do not roll the dice because you are going to be disappointed if you're not careful. And then just for absolute fun, how many collectors of T206 can do this? I tried flipping the camera. It doesn't work very well, but it's just cool to say red Cobb, red Cobb. But this one is just amazing. And now a second ago, I think I said there were 16 cards for my set. There's actually only 15, but that leaves 8 remaining cards, and all of these are over, or at least a 3 or above. And so over 50% of my cards for my set came back a 3, which makes me very, very happy, which in a weird way validates what I thought in my original video around, I think I have some pretty good raw cards, but I don't really know or understand the low end of the scale as well as I know the top end of the scale when it comes to 9.5 and 10. So just very, very happy to add 8 of these cards to my set because it jumps my set forward in a big way on that goal of having an SGC 3. But first up, from the 3 perspective, we have this Shad Berry. Just another run-of-the-mill card, but very happy it came back in a 3. Next up, we have one of my favorite players in the set, Dummy Taylor. Now, the neatest thing with this card is when you look at it, the printing is off. The plates are off altogether, but you can see 3 different colors of the plates when you look at that top left corner. So registration, not the best, but just a cool look at how these cards were printed 115 years ago. Now, next up, we have Clyde Milan. I was a little cautious on this card. I thought it may come back in A grade just because maybe the edges were a little too perfect, in my opinion, to still be raw, but very, very happy. Very clean front, very clean back for an SGC 3. Then we have another tattoo sleeve card here, Del Howard. One of the players I feel most connected to because I took this card when it was in a BGS 3.5 sleeve or slab to his gravesite here in Seattle. And that is why he is on my arm, just because of that personal connection, but very happy to have this one as well in a 3. Next up, we have who we call on the card Bud Sharpe, but we all know it is Harry Henchman, but that red is just, in my opinion, striking, and overall just a very, very nice looking card for Harry Henchman, aka Bud Sharpe. Next up, we have Larry Schlafly. This one, another one, very, very nice. That blue is very strong on the front, very, very clean back, in my opinion, and centering also really, really good on this Schlafly. Next up, we have 3.5, a step up from 3, Jimmy Burke. Very, very strong red, even though there is a little bit maybe of a darkening of the red on the top left. Maybe that's some staining that just makes the red look a little bit darker, but very happy with this one. The back centering, not so well, but the front centering, I think, is pretty good, although it is tilted to the top right. And then my best graded card of the entire order is this Bob Bescher portrait. Obviously, not a miscut, but you can take a look at it when the card is in the sleeve, just how off-center that card is in general, but very, very happy to end up with this order being the only 4. And then this Bob Bescher portrait 4 is now the only 4 on the SGC population report. There are 2 5s and 1 6, so it's not the highest graded Bescher portrait in the entire population report, but it is kind of cool to own the only 4 that is on the report at this exact moment. So all in all, a very, very successful order with SGC. And if you're curious, this was my first grading order with them since 2021. This is how far and how much I'm out of the grading game, but this is an exciting process and event for me as a collector of T206 Polar Bear. I can't wait to submit more cards to them to see how they come back, but I'm really curious, what are your thoughts? When you saw these cards come through, did you agree with the grade? Did you think that some were undergraded or overgraded? Leave a comment below. And also, more importantly, if you want to learn more about T206 and the players with a Polar Bear back T206 card, hit that like button and also hit that subscribe button.